the worst away team versus Spurs, the worst home team. Naturally, we blink first. It's Spurs physics. 2 negatives make a negative. Bergvall got shouted at like he was the kid who just gifted the opposition a goal. Vic. Turns out he wasn't observing the players' little ritual of leaving the pitch at halftime in a group. I don't know if that's to take the boos collectively. Is it just another barrier between players and fans? Real fans, true fans, say Thomas and the players. It's a widening schism. Are they losing us? Are we losing them? And where are the heroes? The Stevie Perrimans and Ledley Kings. Having Redknapp, he wouldn't take any of our current players ahead of his Spurs team. Is he right? Strap in. It's Nice One Cyril.
Nice One Cyril.
So welcome to Nice One Cyril. I'm Simon Lipson. With me today are, as ever, Spurs Encyclopedia, Dame Julie Welch, and mental health educator and writer. And actually, we could do a bit about mental health education right now, given where we are. It's Kevin Aycott. So let's get into... we're going to try and bring some cheer to Spurs podcasting because it's pretty grim out there, and we've got some stuff coming up later on that I hope will give you something else to think about and get excited about. Now then, Julie, what a shit performance, wasn't it? Awful, Christ almighty.
I just don't know what to say. I mean, it's just so grim. It really is grim. I'm nearly in tears. No, I'm not. I'm a sensible woman. I'm not in tears. I can't believe it. It was just so awful. And all I can say is the only thing that I respected about it was Vic actually had the stones to stand up and sort of defend himself at the press conference. But, you know, Mr. Flappy does it again.
I was going to say that, talking about Mr. Flappy, who for the uninitiated is Vicario, he was right below me, actually, Kev, when he was making that ridiculous foray from his goal line. And he got to the ball first. He got ahead of his man. And I suppose, like everybody else, I'm just shouting, just put it out. Because if you don't put it out and something goes wrong, but you're in your mind, you think he can't possibly be that stupid to try and pass it to a man who is marked 5 yards up the line. But he was that stupid.
He was.
The other thing that I found a bit extraordinary was that here's Vic venturing out to the touchline, and nobody really bothered to go back and cover, and maybe they thought it was just impossible that someone could score from there. It was a great finish, by the way, but what the fuck was going on?
I don't know. I think, talking of mental health, I think that there was a voice in his head that said, keep it in play, pass it to your team, don't just kick it out. He made that first mistake, which is sort of understandable. And then at the point where he had to do something with it, he did absolutely the wrong thing and made the second mistake that led to the goal. And I think we're having a go at him for having a go at defenders. He only partially took a bit of responsibility, post-match, which was annoying. But they were partly to blame, like you say. It wasn't just him. They didn't cover the goal line. And it just felt like everything came together. And I think, and it's easy for me to say this in retrospect, I haven't been convinced that we've got the defence sorted out. I think I think I've probably said it because it's felt more sorted out than for the last couple of years at least. But it's not. And I think that was a demonstration of it. It wasn't just Vicario's stupid decision-making. It was also poor defending, a sort of incoherence around the defence, not helped probably by Romero not being around. We had a few games where we had a regular back, whatever you call it, 3, 4, 5. And it felt like it was sort of working, but it never felt completely solid. And I think it was really exposed with that. It was comical and it was incredibly depressing. I genuinely laughed at the time, and I got a dirty look from the bloke next to me.
To be 2 down inside about 5 minutes was both surreal and very real. You know, you sort of looking around the stand and people are just doing that head in hands, but yet there's this resignation about the whole thing. Julian?
I was just thinking back to Vicario. I've been reading, because of something I'm writing, about a psychological state called the doorway effect, which is what happens when you go into a room and you suddenly think, what the hell have I come in here for? You can't remember. And I think that is what happened to Vic. Oh,
Yeah.
He suddenly thought, why have I come here? And I think that might also have passed on to the rest of the defence. It's also known as, in another way, it's known as headless chicken syndrome. It's something completely unexpected. And I think that permeated through to the defence. I mean, maybe that's too complicated. I mean, maybe it was just shit goalkeeping and shit defending.
It's just shit everything. I mean, there was as you said, it was a kind of a brain freeze. And I think he thought he was doing the right thing. You know, let's try and keep it in play. Let's be constructive. But we're 5 minutes in, we're a goal down. And I mean, honestly, the other thing, of course, he was on his left foot. Now, his right foot isn't much cop, but be on his left foot and try that. I don't know. It's too scary for words. Well, look, as you say, Julie, he did accept the blame. I mean, what else was he going to do? But we talked, Dev, about this lack of kind of urgency amongst the defenders. You quite rightly, I think, talk about the defence not being quite there. I read on, I think this was Gary of Harlow, said Udogie is dead wood, which I think is a bit extreme.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Worry, I know that Romero wasn't there, but Mickey wasn't great. And overall, it was shambolic, and there was nothing really. I know he chucked a load of crosses into their box, but not one of them found a Spurs player. And it kind of feels odd that the players are railing against Spurs fans being upset. I don't like booing. I really don't like that. But we're entitled to be upset, aren't we?
Yeah, we're absolutely entitled to be upset. I mean, I think I'm sort of with Frank on this, where he was saying, I understand booing at half-time or after the match, but during the match, aimed at a particular player, it's wrong. And I think I'm with him on that. But you've got to accept it, and you've got to look at reasons why people were booing. I'm not someone who does do that or did do that. I wanted to kill them.
Thomas has been critical of the fans. He has said that people booing are not true fans. Now, I would never boo. I've never booed in my life. Players don't need that. I've tooted and I've huffed and puffed and kind of that sort of thing. But I would never boo. But is it right, Julie? Is it fair to all fans who booed with the same breath? I mean, it seems a bit nonsensical.
Really bad mistake. I mean, do you remember last season when Ange started I think it was against Chelsea, but he actually started taking the piss out of the fans, and he lost them.
Yeah, there was that ear cupping thing, wasn't there? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That was a really bad moment, and I'm concerned that Thomas is already there so soon into his tenure. I mean, at least we'd given Ange 18 months.
Also, the other thing that he's relatively new to the whole Spurs thing. And of course, you want to ingratiate yourself. You want to feel part of it, but you're new. And for you to be having a go at people who've been there for years, been going week in, week out, it smacks of something that's very uncomfortable. And I think he needs to watch his words.
Well,
Julie?
Nobody can see this, but both Kev and I have been nodding enthusiastically at what you're saying, Simon. You're right. Carry on.
Okay. Well, now you've interrupted me. I've lost my train of thought. So, because we're all old, aren't we? We can't really hang on to trains of thought. Let me ask you this. Somebody quite amusingly on one of my Spurs Facebook groups called him Thomas the Plank Engine, which I think is quite nice. And, here's the question. Kev, we've been saying, I think pretty much throughout the course of this ever worsening season that we've got to give him time. You've got to give him time. You can't keep churning managers. You can't keep changing things. Let him see out his vision. But you said to me on WhatsApp this week, if we get smashed at Newcastle, which when people are listening to this, it will be tonight if they're listening on the Tuesday. And if they're listening on Wednesday, Kev, they'll already know the result. I'll shut up. But that, I don't know, would that be a breaking point, or would Brentford at home be a breaking point?
I suspect Brentford at home will be the breaking point. If we lose tomorrow and we lose or even just play miserably, which is almost certain, against Brentford, I think that'll be him out. I still think I'm just on the side of let's give him a chance. It's just one of the frustrations is I don't know what we're giving him a chance to do. I don't know what his plan is. I don't know what his football is, and I don't think he does. And I don't think he knows, a few people have been saying, he doesn't know his best team. I don't think he does know his best team. And experimenting is fair enough. He needs to get to know the players, but there has to be a consistency and a coherence to the way we play, and there isn't one at the moment. And that's pissing fans off. And then pissed off fans are pissing them off, rightly or wrongly, and the whole thing just sort of circles down. And it's really hard to feel positive. I absolutely don't think we're going to even get a draw tomorrow night. I absolutely think we're going to lose. Newcastle aren't a great team, but they're a better team than us. And their manager is a sound manager and knows his best team and has a way of playing. I think we should hold on to Frank for now. I think if you ask me next Monday and we've lost those 2 matches, I'll be saying he does need to go. I suspect he'll go anyway, because I think the politics are interesting. We don't really know what they are. Levy was this sort of focus. I saw him referred to today as the iconic Daniel Levy, and I thought that's one of those words that's overused, but I never thought it would be used in relation to him. But you can imagine them going, as Frank was a Levy decision, he got it wrong. We're the new people. We're going to go for someone else, and we're going to put some money in.
I heard some quite interesting chat about this on another pod. I shouldn't listen to other podcasts, obviously, but I do just occasionally. And they were saying that, and I think this was a really good point, that when the booing started, and it was clearly directed at Vicario, and it was briefly, to be fair, it probably got 3 or 4 boos for his next 3 or 4 touches. But had Levy still been there, they will just be shouting at Levy and saying Levy out, right? He became a very much this focal point of all that disgust and hate and all the rest of it. Now he's not there anymore. Where do you put this disenchantment? I mean, really, he's gone. So that's it. Levy's gone. Now we're getting, but what about his fucking legacy? That's what we're struggling with right now. But really, it's not good looking back. We've got to start looking forward. We've got a new manager. We've got a couple of new players. You can't keep, going back to this Levy blame culture, because it doesn't achieve anything.
Well, what concerns me is that although Levy has gone, the culture of the club hasn't changed at all. I mean, I thought when, the younger members of the Lewis family came in, that they were going to sprinkle stardust over us. They were interested in winning things and stuff like that. But, it's just the same, isn't it? Reverting to Frank, you're right. He was a Levy appointment, and that absolutely typical Levy appointment, probably, somebody, a chairman or an owner with more vision and more willingness to spend money would have been able to prize Oliver Glasner away from Palace, for instance. And he would have been the I would really have liked to have seen replace Ange, because he knows what he's doing. But we got Thomas Frank, who his backstory, his track record is very good, but he was able to build his own team season after season. And so he coped very well with that. He did very well with that, but he seems unable to cope with a sort of random assortment of players. I mean, we've talked about this before, that each new manager who comes in has to deal with the crop that the last manager sacked had been provided with, and he doesn't have the nous to deal with it. And I just think, I don't know if they respect him. I mean, obviously nice guy, all that sort of stuff, but I've gone on about this before. I wonder whether the fact that he's never played, serious football, and he's not that young, he's got that sort of cool dad shtick, which if I was a young footballer, I would think was a bit naff. I just don't see it. I've stopped seeing it. I mean, his first few games, I thought, oh, right, that, good decision, great. And it's just gone downhill from there.
And I think he's the victim of this, the outturn culture. I mean, nobody just walks into a new club and turns it around, because we're dealing with years and years of failure, of underachievement. And yet we won a cup last season. The more you think about it and the more you look at the evidence, the more it looked like an absolute fluke, an absolute one-off. So for him to come in with largely the same squad of players, there's a couple of new players in, and for us to expect him to turn it around, from shit to gold, it's not going to happen, is it, Kevin? And at the same time, it's difficult to discern any kind of structure, any kind of tactical kind of solidity, something we can grab hold of that says, yeah, look, we're not doing it yet, but we stick with this guy, and maybe we'll. I mean, I'm sorry, just to embellish that. Well, there were some green shoots, weren't there, against Paris Saint-Germain? On reflection, I think they just tried. They knew they could beat us, whatever happened. But he then tried much the same trick against Fulham, and it went to hell. And you just think he's just floundering.
He's floundering. He's floundering tactically and strategically, I think, at the moment. And it doesn't worry me. I'm sort of, I feel myself veering towards where you are, Julie, with this, that, I was absolutely 100% sure, even if we'd lost the first half dozen matches, I still would have been sure, no, this is the right decision. And now there's something about the relationship with the players that's worrying, and obviously the relationship with the fans. There was a small part of me when I saw, I think it was an interview from yesterday, when he was standing up saying, basically, you're not a good Spurs fan if you boo during the match. There was part of me that quite admired him for that, because he wasn't doing the Mr. Nice Guy, and he wasn't doing the politically correct thing, which would have been to be far more diplomatic. So there was, just that part of me just thinking, okay, well done. There's a sort of toughness, even if you're wrong. There's a sort of toughness there, and that sort of, there's something positive in that potentially. I don't know. He doesn't have that sort of record. But I was thinking, Wenger or Mourinho or various other people were sort of on the periphery of football and became very, very successful managers relatively early in their sort of management careers as well. I don't know. I'm desperately trying to hold on to something positive, because this also feels like this is not just about Frank or the fans or this squad. It's something rotten at the heart of the club. That was not just Levy. I think this were hiding behind Levy up to a point as well. We've got 25 odd years of neglect that wasn't just Levy's neglect.
Yeah. It's just sort of rotten at the core. I was watching Thomas Frank throughout the match, because the dugout is kind of just below me to the left, and he was gesticulating and, doing the hands were going everywhere, and he was shouting and screaming and looking at players and trying to attract players' attention. And I don't know if this is confirmation bias, right? It might well be. I didn't see anybody look at him or respond to him. And now, it may be that players rarely do. I mean, they probably rarely do anyway. They just think, shut up, don't give me an earful, let me do my thing. As I say, maybe I was seeing what I wanted to see, but what I what seemed to confirm to me that they're not buying into him. They're not taking enough notice of him. They don't believe in the things he says. And Julie, he did say after the match something about, we're going to carry on doing what we believe in, right? What the fuck do we believe in? Is it just him?
I think that's just, hot air, basically. One thing does occur to me. The 2 seasons before of having a manager who was a sort of great, big, sarcastic, snarling bastard, you'd respect a guy. And suddenly, they've got this kind of Fotherington Thomas chap who is just completely different. I think that for all Angie's faults, they probably did respect him as a man.
Yeah.
Who didn't need to be crossed, and I don't get the impression that they think of Thomas Frank in the same way. I still think Thomas Frank is trying to be down with the kids too much. It just doesn't.
He's the archetypal, putting his arm around everybody, and was the archetypal, players and me. We don't, never the twain. You just do what I tell you. And none of it worked, of course, but certainly this isn't working. I wanted to ask you, there was an interesting bit of film that came on to, was it Lee Brown, who came up with it on our WhatsApp this week, in which the great Harry Redknapp, who, God, would we have him back now? Harry Redknapp was comparing his best team to our current team, and he's doing all the Harry Redknapp stuff, and I don't want him. He's a smashing boy. I don't want him. And he was comparing. That was a terrible impression. He was comparing. So, for example, Lovely King with Van der Vet. I'm not sure these are direct comparisons that are valid, but all day long it's got to be leg. And the only player he conceded should possibly be in his team from 2008, something like that, was Romero. And then he changed his mind about that because he felt bad about leaving Michael Dawson out. So, but it is interesting, and going through, I might quibble with one or two of those, Kev, but on the whole, I think I tend to agree with Harry.
Yeah, I did as well, and that made me even more depressed watching that, because you talk about the current squad, and I think I said Van der Ven, I think, is the only player who would have found a way in some way into that Redknapp team.
Going through the team that Harry had, I mean, there were stars, weren't there? Then Modric and Bale, the standout players, and Van der Vaart maybe. He also had Peter Crouch. I loved Crouch.
Our team against Fulham contained 10 full internationals. The starting 11, 10 full internationals. Only Archie Credy wasn't one, and we had 3 full internationals coming on. So I would say, look, I don't think we've got any. We haven't got a Bale, we haven't got a Modric, we don't have a Kane, but we've got very competent players who have proven themselves at international level. These are not bad players. Why are they playing so badly?
That's the question everybody wants to have a good answer to. Why are they playing? And all I can say is, it's all piecemeal. They haven't gelled as a unit at all. You get some lovely individual kind of performance and goals. Again, Mickey, for instance, Archie Gray, Palhinha early on, although he's dropped off a bit. So, what's happened to Bentancur? He's the famous double pivot notwithstanding. I don't know. There is a sort of what we in Fleet Street used to call a deep-seated malaise. I think it's partly club culture. It's sort of thing is that there's a sort of low aspiration that kind of seeps into people who want to come and play for Spurs. I mean, I think Spurs did so well with Pochettino because they actually had, they had Harry Kane who would not let that happen. Leaving aside Harry Kane's obvious and, brilliant talents as a player, there was something about Harry's attitude which really gelled with that whole style of that team. There's nobody I can identify in this current team who has a shred of that kind of, resilience, wanting to do stuff. It reminds me of the really limp Tottenham of the early noughties. Basically, there were some good players there, and they just achieved nothing. I mean, it's a puzzle. Is it the club culture? Is it just something about, we're not as good as, let's say, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Manchester City because we're not paid as much? Is it because the Spurs wage structure? So you don't pay them most, so you don't get the best. They haven't got lucky this time with players on a free from the youth team. They've sent what looks like the only decent one to Rangers, and he may or may not prove to be really good. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of, there's a sort of cheapskate aura about Spurs.
It's interesting you mentioned Harry Kane there, and it was a point I want to raise here. Kev today, he dropped a stream of consciousness erudite series of questions on our Nice One Cyril email. And it's actually too erudite for me because, frankly, my brain stopped functioning, around the time Mrs. Brown's voice became popular. I mean, there's no hope at that point. However, you were talking about one of the many issues you raised was about heroes. And we can identify heroes. Quite often they are Steve Perryman, Lodley King, kids who have come through the academy and become, stalwarts in the side and tremendous players in their own right. One can look at Harry Kane. But right now, I look through that team. You always want to latch on to somebody. There's nobody.
The only, for me, the possible potential hero is Mickey van der Ven.
Yeah.
Because he's already done 2 or 3 heroic things that very, very few footballers could do. But he's not there yet. And the worry is he'll move on and become a hero, a richer club. I was just thinking about, you mentioned about mental health, and I was just thinking while Julie was talking, so how would you diagnose the club? It came to depression. It's a depressed club, and with a lot of anxiety around as well, I think. Low confidence, poor self-esteem. And I think we're sort of picking that up and feeding it back to them, and everyone's in this sort of circular, depressed sort of state. There's this theory in depression about learned helplessness. And that's what it feels like, and I think our response to going 2 down in 6 minutes was a sort of helpless one in a way. There was booing, but most people didn't boo. Most people just sort of collapsed. So there's something really wrong. And that, I think that depression has been there long, long before Thomas Frank and long before Postecoglou, actually.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been quite as exposed as it is now. It's almost like we've been pretending not to be depressed.
Yeah, it's the interesting, that's great points. And I think with fans, right? And this is a podcast for fans by fans. It's determinedly unanalytical. This is how we feel, right? And that's the key element, isn't it, Julie? We feel Tottenham Hotspur. It's emotional. We're attached to this entity, and we have these wonderful memories. And rose tinted. We think about Stevie Perron. We think about Mackay. We think about Bale and Modric, and all of those things attach you to a club. But the club is run by a business, and I think, and it's probably true of most clubs these days, businesses don't give a shit about sentimentality. They don't give a shit about emotional attachment. They give a shit about profit. And are we gradually becoming kind of being torn away from this thing that binds us, that means so much to us?
I think you and Kev are both absolutely right. I was just thinking back about our absolute euphoria when we won the Europa League. And I thought at the time, you know, there's going to be a terrible come down after that. It's like postnatal depression. I think. You're right. The club just doesn't give a shit about us as fans. You know, as long as we pay, as long as the seats are filled. I think the attendance against Fulham was something like 60,000, something like that. So pretty good. I don't want to be anti-progress. It's a fantastic stadium, but it's now become all about the stadium and the go-karting track and everything you can do in the stadium except, you know, win football matches. I think that's got to a lot of us. I mean, remembering sort of great teams of the past, the 80-81 team to the 2016-17 team, moving from the lane, which brought us a wonderful stadium after 2 seasons of grimness at Wembley. That seems to have been where everything has just sort of gone to shit, basically. I mean, I can't say shit, but it's been sort of comedy Spurs from then. You know, the changes of manager, the disappointments, the losing in finals, all the jokes which bring us together. Like, oh, you know, at least we're not going to have Ryan Mason as interim manager this time. That sort of, that kind of binds us, but it shouldn't just be that. All our humour is, I was just thinking the other day, it's all black humour, isn't it, at the moment?
It is. Yeah.
I mean, are other clubs like that? I don't know.
Well, sometimes I go and venture onto other clubs' X feeds, you know, and see what are their fans saying. And sometimes, even last season, I'd go onto Liverpool's feed and they say, "Oh, fucking hell, you know, Curtis Jones is shit," and we're thinking this team is beating everybody, and they've only got time to talk about Curtis Jones being shit, and lots of other players are getting hammered. You know, Man United fans hammer their players, and even Man City. Christ Almighty! It's quite an education to have a look at other things. I think it's a fan thing that we feel entitled to both love and hate and criticize our teams. But I think it's this disconnect right now with us. Right, this is our problem.
I just want someone to love, and I'm you know, I've been trying to make a sort of love relationship with Tell. I'm sort of trying to make it.
You love him, Mickey, don't you? Love him, Mickey.
Whoa.
With his sensible haircut. And Kev, it's interesting because actually fans, it isn't just about connection, because we had Glenn Hoddle as our manager, and we wanted him out quite quickly because he was a pain in the arse, and he's a Spurs legend. I love Glenn as a player. Not much else besides that, but we were always looking for something that draws us back. I went to the match, and I always go, right? I always go to the bloody match. Now I go with a slight sense of dread, and I can sit there almost unmoved by the calamity unfolding in front of me. And I don't know whether that's me disconnecting, or is it me just getting older and it doesn't matter as much? I don't know. What's your sort of current status emotionally with the club?
I mean, I think for me, there's a bit of both. There's something about getting older and maybe less in love with the club, regardless. I don't know, because at the same time, I feel like I'm passing this on to the next generation, to my grown up children. I feel guilty about that. I feel guilty that I've passed it on to them, because it upsets them as well, and I feel somehow responsible for that. But it's also something that the club is doing to us. And I had a conversation this afternoon with a colleague who's a Derby fan, and he was just talking about the owner. The Derby owner is a lifelong Derby County fan, local man, made a lot of money, and is putting it into the club. And the way he talked about the club was so different to the way we talk. They've had a reasonably good start. They won 5 in a row, then they lost it the weekend. But he sort of immediately went, they lost it the weekend, and the but was, but we're together. Something about the fans and the owner being together. And I envied him, and I just thought, right now, I'd rather be a Derby County fan.
Yeah.
and I wish I could find a way to do it, but it's not. I know it's not going to happen. And it's not a serious desire, but it would be nice to feel part of something that that's cooperative and together.
I wonder if we're kind of too big, so that this is now this huge corporation, and the days when we had a nice dinky 36,000 capacity stadium that was a bit falling down, and all of that stuff, and you kind of walked up to the ground, and the smells and the sounds had this great sort of resonance where it meant something. I still think back to the UEFA Cup final, and Parks made the save, and Danny Thomas missed the pen, all that stuff. But there's nothing, even when I think back to Bilbao, let's face it, Julie, we hadn't won a fucking thing for 17 years, and was just relief. It wasn't. I haven't thought about the match since. Whereas I can think about the 81 Cup final. We talked about Tony Galvin's contribution to that final. I could think about, Gazzaglia's knee. I can think about lots of different, even Alan Nielsen scoring against Leicester after we had Justin Edinburgh sent off. All of that means something. I'm struggling to connect with the win in Bilbao. I'm struggling to connect with this club right now.
I felt very connected in the first few months of Ange's regime. When that game, when Chelsea beat us, was it 5-1? And Van de Ven did his hamstring, and who I can't remember off the top of my head who got sent off. But all the fans stood up to applaud at the end. They didn't walk out. So something has happened between then and now, and I don't know what that is. Maybe it is just did we have so much expectation after Bilbao that all our troubles were now over, and were we being unrealistic? I can't remember a time when I've just felt so flat about Spurs, and I've got a book about it coming out, I think, in the next week or so. But I just feel so flat and disappointed. I had no idea it was going to work out like this. I mean, as I said earlier, I didn't really fancy Frank as Ange's replacement, but he seemed to make a good start. But it's all gone, pear-shaped, really, hasn't it?
And when Frank came in, there was this talk about, in these previous clubs, his first 8 games or something, he's only got 4 points altogether or something like that. And he came in and we beat Burnley comfortably, and then we went to Man City and won. And I think suddenly expectations were off the charts. Hang on, I'm going to win the league here. But Kev, I mean, realistically, he's going through his 8 games now, isn't he? I mean, nothing fits, nothing works. He's experimenting, and I feel like he's losing us as fans a little bit. He's losing the players, and I'm the only manager I ever was desperate to get rid of was the loathsome Mourinho, and I didn't much like Conte, but I wasn't kind of going out on Twitter and let's get rid of it. But I love Thomas Frank because he's sane, he's human, he's not hysterical, he's not sarcastic, but maybe he's not a very good manager.
That's the worry, isn't it? Maybe he's not, or maybe he's not a very good manager for Tottenham at this point in our history. 5 years ago, 10 years time, maybe. I don't know. No, I don't know. I wish we could just pin it down and say this is the one thing that's going wrong. It's definitely the manager. It's definitely the players. It feels like a historical thing. It feels like just build up, year after year after year. And like I said, things are exposed now. For whatever reason, all the shit that's been there for a long time is exposed now. I still think right now we stick with Frank and see if he can actually, I don't know, tie things back up together, some stitch the wound a bit for us to move on. But, I'm not convinced by myself saying that.
Yeah.
It's because, but the reason I partly say that is because who's going to do it? Who's going to come in with this squad and transform it and do what we want them to do? I don't think there's anyone on earth that can do it.
No.
I hope I'm wrong if it happens, but
It's the ultimate poison chalice, isn't it? And, it's, Mourinho came in with this extraordinary pedigree. Maybe he was a little bit past his peak, but still he couldn't do anything with us. Conte, a very successful manager, everywhere he's been, he couldn't do anything. And Conte spoke, didn't he, Julie, towards the end, he talked himself out of the job. He just lambasted everything to do with the club as if to say, nobody, you could bring God in here and he couldn't turn it round. But it's kind of like that, isn't it?
He's a very intelligent man. I mean, and you look at his record, he wasn't off the boil. Mourinho was a bit off the boil by the time he came to us. But you get two top managers, both brilliant, brilliant managers who succeeded, beyond most managers' wildest dreams, and they both nailed what was wrong with the club. And it hasn't changed. I mean, like we said, so bye-bye Levy hasn't changed. Still the same old shit. I don't know. I can't see any way it's going to change. I think that if we lose the next two games, I would think that Frank might not be our manager by Christmas. Thing is, got the January window coming up. Is he's there? Are they going to splash out on some more players? Are they going to be any good? We don't know. Paratici is back at the club, and he got us two very good ones, didn't he? Bentancur and Kulusevski. Is Kulusevski ever going to come back? I mean, that's the other question. He just sort of evaporated. It's a terrible combination of circumstances, really. You've got to give Frank that he lost Maddison, before the season actually started. Really, no Kulusevski, no Solanke. Those are three key players that fucked up the Eze deal and the Gibbs White deal, which is true Spurs. The players two of the players that were brought in, Xavi Simons and Moani, I don't think they fit. I thought that. Kolo Muani sort of did well against PSG, his old team. Maybe playing against them suited him, but very little else really. And as for Xavi Simons, is it Xavi or Xavi? I know what
it doesn't matter at this point. It no longer matters.
Yeah, who cares? But it cost a lot, but he's not very good, is he? Really?
He looks like a player to me who hasn't found his stride or his rhythm yet. He doesn't know where he's supposed to be in this team. And likewise with Moani, who, again, we've seen glimpses of something really special, but nothing's kind of gelled for him. I'd argue the same is true of Kudus, who we were going bananas over at the beginning.
Yeah.
And he seems to have gone backwards now, although he did score a great goal the other day.
Yeah, well, there is that. But again, what help does he have, really? The whole team is not working together.
We kind of lack. I know we talked about Mickey van der Ven. You made me smile there because you used his whole name. And I was thinking, is there a point at which players cease to become our mates, right? So Romero was cutie, wasn't he, when we all liked him? Now he's just Romero, right? He's just fucking Romero. And next he'll just be Donkey, right? I just wonder with Mickey, like we call him Mickey, we don't call him Mickey, and it's his name. He's only 3 games away from being Van der Ven, and likewise Vicario. Look, I like Vuk. Now he's Vicario. We are quite fickle as fans, aren't we? But it does kind of, I don't know. It sort of amplifies the lack of connection with at least one or two players who kind of you could always fall back on, and they're your mates. They're the people who are going to do it for you when the chips are down. Harry Kane, one of our own,
Yeah.
I try not to call him Mickey. That's the Irish word for penis. So that's I've been saying Mickey van der Ven.
Well, we're learning stuff that perhaps we'd rather not know about. By the time a lot of people listen to this podcast, we'll be getting close to kick off. Others will listen to it after we've been battered. Why don't we just send in 10 kids and what the hell? It's not going to make any difference to the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to predictions, I think I've did the last 4 matches or something on here. I've actually predicted a win for us. So I think that I'm going to take a cunning approach to this one. We're going to lose. We're going to get hammered 4-1. That I can't remember his name, but he's in my Premier League. Their striker, newish striker.
Voldemort.
Voldemort. Yeah. He will get at least a couple. We'll go 1 up. That's what I'm going to predict. We will go 1-0 up, and everything will seem absolutely fine for about 7 minutes, and then we'll lose 4-1.
That long?
Yeah.
Julie, I tell you what, if I go for the draw, you go for the win, then we've got it covered.
I think we'll get absolutely done by an early 2 from Harvey Barnes, and Nick Woltemade will probably knock a third in. I can't see us scoring anything unless Mickey does one of his fantastic gallops from our half.
Yeah, it's the classic got a rock and a hard place for Thomas Frank now, isn't it? Because in trying to be a bit more attacking with his lineup against Fulham, and it failed. We were terrible against Arsenal when we were just defending, and likewise against Chelsea. We're up against a team that is, really, they come at you like a fucking tidal wave when they get going at Newcastle. And Kevin, it's which way does he go? Is it the old double pivot and 5 at the back, and Christ knows what?
I think if I were him, I would go for it, and maybe take a risk, bring a couple of the real young'uns in, and just go for it, because I think the Arsenal game proved we cannot hold back a decent team. We made a decent team look bloody good, and I think we'd do the same with Newcastle. I think we should go for it. I don't think we'd be moaning about that after if we lose.
Of course, we make rubbish teams look good as well. So we cover the full smorgasbord. Is it stick or twist? What does he do?
Yeah, one thing which worries me is, why do we concede so early? I mean, it's I remember Bournemouth, Fulham again. Here we go again. Why do we concede so early? If we can just hang on for 10 minutes, maybe we've got a chance.
Well, we're just not capable, are we? It's funny. I was watching some other matches over the weekend and thinking, well, here's an attack. It looks like it doesn't look very promising, and you can see it's not going to result in a goal. When anyone attacks us, doesn't matter where they are on the pitch, I think, well, this is dangerous. This is dangerous, and I know this is typical fan. It's a typical fan response, but actually it is dangerous because we can't defend. We can't keep teams out, and then we go forward. And you think, oh, there's another cross straight onto the head of their centre half. And, Porro was doing that. Kudus was doing it against Fulham. I don't know. Everything just feels very bleak right now. Well, look, I tell you what. Let's...
I said to you this morning that we must offer comfort to our fellow...
Well, give us something, Julie. Give us something to hold on to.
Thomas Frank will have resigned by the time we finish this pod and fill in the gaps. Who's going to take over?
Well, that's cheery stuff. Kev, who's stepping in? It's not Ryan Mason. Who's it going to be?
I did see something today about, I don't know how you pronounce it. It's the same name. I don't know how you pronounce it. Xavi.
Oh, Xavi, yeah, the former Barcelona player. Yeah, sure.
They're starting whoever they are starting those rumours. I was about to say, but that won't make any difference, even if he did come.
I will do it. I put Ben Beldis in charge because he's a lovely bloke. He's highly intelligent.
He's taking his coaching badges already.
There you are. I think we've found our man. We've identified our man. All right. Well, look, thank you to Julie Wilf and Kev Acott for dragging us further into the mire of depression about all things Spurs. We are going to be back on Friday. Kev and I will be here on Friday. Is it you and me, Kev, or is it me? That's me and Dave.
No, it's okay.
we're going to do our little sort of extra time edition where we'll cover the Newcastle victory and have a little chat about Brentford as well, and lots of other nonsense and bollocks and twaddle. Do give us a follow on X. We are at Nice One Cyril Pod, and we are on Facebook, we're on Instagram and all that malarkey. And do listen to our pod on all possible platforms and give us a follow, give us a subscribe or whatever it is. And you'll never miss another Nice One Cyril. That's it. We'll see you next time. Come on, you Spurs. Nice One Cyril.